This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Chronic pain. It is something that hundreds of thousands of people suffer with every day. But what happens when you're told just to get your walker ready, but you decide to find your inner spirit to come out of that? You become a warrior. Join me as I talk to extraordinary person Cheryl Ilov on this episode of True Crime in Authors.
Welcome to True Crime and Authors Podcast, where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction. Here's your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Authors Extraordinary People Edition. Of course, I am your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you're following us on all of our social medias. One link to a link tree will get you every link you need to the show in the show notes. All right, so I have a very fabulous guest for you today. Let me tell you who we are talking to. She is an author, speaker, physical therapist, martial artist, dancer, and former chronic pain patient. She published the award-winning and best-selling book, Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond in 2016. And with over 20 years experience as a physical therapist in private practice, she has helped hundreds of clients recover from pain and injuries by integrating the science of physical therapy with the art of movement. She believes that everyone can enjoy vibrant health and vitality at every stage of life. She is also a second-degree black belt in an ancient Japanese martial art called Ninpo Taijutsu. From her own experience of beginning her training at the tender young age of 47 and becoming her teacher's first female black belt 10 years later, she discovered that there is an incredible amount of strength and power in each and every one of us just waiting to be unleashed. She recently published her second book, The Reluctant Ninja: How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen, and it has earned an award through the Reader's Favorite Book Awards and is receiving rave reviews. She is the author of Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond, and the host of the Ninja Project. Please welcome Cheryl Ilov. Cheryl, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
So we have met before. I am actually coming up on an episode of your podcast, so it is an honor and a pleasure to see you again. I know you said you started training martial arts at the tender age of 47. You don't look past 25.
This is another reason why we get along.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about you that we did not hear here? What would you like everybody else to know about Cheryl Ilov?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's just start. Let's go way back. I was actually born and raised in a small steel town in western Pennsylvania, which is why I live in Denver now. So I moved to Denver just a few days after I graduated college. So the ink was actually still wet on the diploma, and my college roommate and I just packed up my 1974 Ford Maverick and drove across the country to Denver just because we wanted a change of scenery. I was tired of western Pennsylvania. She was originally from Cleveland, and she was really tired of that. So we just came out here to seek our fame and fortune, or at least just to do some fantastic skiing. So I got a job right away, of course, as a respiratory therapist. That's what my education was in then. And that was my first career. And then eventually, after 17 years, I went back to school and got my master's degree in physical therapy. Along the way, there were some snafus and some really difficulties in my life. I did end up, as you said, being a chronic pain patient when I was in my mid-30s. And I lived that life for 2.5 years. I was a quote-unquote good patient. I did everything that the doctors told me to do, the physical therapists told me to do. I took all the medications, but instead of getting better, I kept getting worse. I just kept spiraling down until I got to the point where, after 2.5 years of living like that, one of my physicians told me that I would never have the life I had before. I would never be able to do my laundry and my grocery shopping all on the same day because the arthritis in my spine was so severe I'd end up being bedridden. And then she told me to start applying for disability because I was going to need it. I was 36 years old. And I just looked at her and I said, "You don't understand. I'm planning on going back to ballet class." And she laughed in my face and she says, "No, you don't understand. You are a chronic pain patient. You will always be a chronic pain patient. But don't you worry, we're going to take care of you." And I went home and I hit rock bottom. And it took me a few days, but a few days later, it was like, wait a minute. This is on you, not on them. They're making you worse. You need to figure out what's going on and you need to fix it yourself. And it just launched me on this incredible journey of self-exploration, education, and healing. And I just fired my entire medical team, stopped taking the medications, stopped doing the stupid exercises and stretches that the PTs gave me. And I can say that because I am a PT. And I just taught myself how to move again without pain. And I just had to dissect all of the movement patterns that I already understood, like from Pilates and ballet. And I would just do simple, tiny little movements and notice when it was exacerbating my pain and when it relieved my pain. And the only thing I added to that regime was acupuncture. For the first time I tried acupuncture, I thought I was so desperate. I even tried acupuncture because as a Western medicine trained person, you don't do stuff like that. But now I'm a total believer. And, it took about 8 months, but I actually, cured myself of the chronic pain. And look at me now.
So being that you worked in the field, what kind of things did you see as a physical therapist? Is it one of those things where because of big pharma maybe, and the doctors are making money off of that, they would rather keep you on drugs than to try to ease your pain?
Now, the new me, the one that you're talking to right now, says, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a big part of it. Back then, I would have said that can't be possible until I lived it. And I realized even one time they had me on anti-inflammatories. Anti-inflammatories just came onto the scene. This was 30 years ago. So I am older than 25. I went to the pharmacy to get my refill of my anti-inflammatories. And when she handed me the pills and told me how much it was, the cost had doubled in the past month. And I just looked at her and I said, I can't afford this. And she said, well, I'm sorry, but the price has really increased. Now, this was 30 years ago, like I said. And tears filled my eyes. And I just said, I'm sorry. And I put it back on the counter. And this was at the grocery store. And I kept on doing my shopping. And about 20 minutes later, I heard my name being paged. Will customer Cheryl Ilov please return to the pharmacy? And I'm like, okay, what do you want? So I went back to the pharmacy and she said, we looked around and we were able to find a better price for you. So now it's going to be what you paid before. And that made me start scratching my head going, wait a minute. What happened between the time I said, no, I am not going to pay for this. I don't want it. I'll manage without it. And then 20 minutes later, how did the price go back down to what I was paying before? So I think there is an awful lot of, let's get you on these medications. You need these medications. You need us. We are going to take care of you. And that's really dangerous. Because when that happens, you are actually handing over your autonomy, your personal power to another person who might not have your best interests at heart. They may say they do, and maybe they do, but they're really limited by what their education and what their scope of practice is.
I know my wife suffers from chronic pain, and I've been in a battle with her because the doctor that she currently has, I don't like. Now I'm all for holistic medicine, and that is fine. But if your patient is telling you that does not work, then you should do something else. She got into a car wreck 20 plus years ago, and she suffers from migraines continuously in her knee. And I told her myself, I says, maybe you should look for another doctor, someone that's going to listen to you. She did have one of those at one point, and then that doctor ended up moving. I says, or maybe you should look for other ways of trying to get rid of the pain. I'm one of those people that I can't let something hold me down. I work through pain all the time. I too have arthritis, but the job that I do where I'm always constantly moving does help. And I know my wife at this point, she says the medicine helps sometimes, but not all. And I says, well, maybe your body's so used to it now, they're not giving you what you need. You need to look for something else, which is why I'm glad that I found you.
Why, thank you.
So do you know what was causing your chronic pain?
Well, it's really interesting because, of course, they were telling me it's arthritis and, you're going to be bedridden, all this kind of stuff. And when I finally said, I am done, I'm not listening, I am not accepting the label that you're putting on me. So that's when I ended up going to an acupuncturist, and who also happened to be a chiropractor, but I just went for the acupuncture because, again, Western medicine, chiropractor, no, that's bad. So he did treat me with acupuncture a few times. And, I was getting so much better already. And then when he was checking my spine, he said, you have a lock here. And he explained it to me. It was what you call a facet joint. So you have your spine with all the, vertebrae lined up. And there's little protrusions coming out of each one that articulates with the vertebrae on top and below it. And there's a little space between there where nerve endings come out. And those nerve endings go to all different parts of your body. Well, I had what's called a facet lock where the joint on one side was compressed and stuck. So it was putting pressure on my sciatic nerve. So once, he did that exam on my spine, he says, well, let's just do an adjustment or two. And I'm thinking, I don't know about this. So of course he did. And we continued the acupuncture. I continued my own self-exploration with movement. And it was almost like either a miracle or magic, how well that worked together. And in just a few months, I was tentatively going back to ballet class. Now, my friends hadn't seen me in over 2.5 years, and they were just like feeling so sorry for me. And I told my ballet teacher, you ignore me. I'm going to stand at the end of the bar. I'm going to just do what I think I can and just no corrections, just leave me alone. And of course, everybody was afraid that, I was going to break. So she was fine with that. So after about 20 minutes, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to leave. Ballet class is usually an hour and a half. So I just, bowed out and I left the class. And you could see all of the women looking at me and the guys with pity, like, oh, how she's so broken. She's so injured. But what they didn't understand is that I was victorious. I was able to do 20 minutes of incredibly very gentle ballet movements in a class with the music, with my friends. And to me, it was just life altering. It was like I had finally come out of that chronic pain syndrome and I could move forward from there.
So now to all of my chronic pain listeners out there, or pain people that's listening, listen to this. So now you went through all of this. You've been told basically you're a shambles of a person. Just pretty much get your wheelchair and your walker ready. And now you brought yourself out of that. You started doing acupuncture. Things are getting better. And at 47, you now decide to take up martial arts. Tell us about that. How did you come to that decision to want to take up martial arts?
Well, I really didn't decide that I wanted to take martial arts. And that explains the title of the book, The Reluctant Ninja. Because it took my sensei. He was actually my acupuncturist before he became my teacher. And it's a very long story. But when I was 44, somebody suggested him, it's like, hey, you might want to try this acupuncturist. He's really good. My other one had since closed his practice, blah, blah, blah. So it was one of my clients who recommended this guy. And I thought, okay, she's pretty picky. She's not going to send me to just anybody. So I went to this guy and he had his clinic. It was kind of like a duplex. So he had his clinic and right next to it was his martial arts dojo. And I'm like, I didn't pay any attention to that. I was just there for acupuncture, right? So I walked into his office and he seemed nice enough. And then when he got me on the table, he started putting needles in my legs. And when he did that, he got a faraway look on his face. And he said, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. This is when the men that hear this, they usually say, come online or, yeah, but it wasn't.
So I can tell you, I think we've had this discussion too, and I was on your podcast that will be airing pretty soon. I'm also a first degree black belt in Taekwondo. I studied up underneath for a long time, Jun Rhee. If you guys ever look him up, Jun Rhee is known as the godfather of Taekwondo. He's trained many people like Chuck Norris. He's also the man that taught Bruce Lee the 1-inch punch. At 60, he was doing 1,000 push-ups in a minute. I wouldn't mess with him. But it brings a lot of healing to you. Martial arts is more than just about the fighting. Yes, you can use it to definitely take somebody out. But the healing it brings, the centeredness of one's body, just the discipline over itself is the main reason I got into that. How do you feel like once you started taking martial arts, how do you feel like that started to help you with your chronic pain and bring you out of that?
Well, that had absolutely nothing to do with my chronic pain. My chronic pain was completely healed by then. I cured myself of the pain with my acupuncturist, the other one. And then I eventually became a physical therapist. I got accepted to PT school. That was one of my goals. And, life was good. I had started my own private practice. And actually, it was September of 2000. I was 44. I actually had a trauma. After that trauma happened, when it did, I tried to get help. I tried to report it, but nobody would listen to me. Even my best friend told me, no, that can't possibly happen. I was basically assaulted in a physician's office. And of course, as a medical person, I'm very medical savvy. I mean, I know the system. And to think that would happen to me, what was happening to other people, other women who didn't have the kind of background that I did. So being a action-driven person, I was going to, I'm still, reeling from the shock and the pain because there was a lot of physical pain involved with that. So I wanted to report him, make sure that, nobody else was ever going to end up in his office without knowing that he was a predator, and then get help for myself so I didn't have this burden, and then move on with my life. But that didn't happen that way. And now I understand why women do not report assault. And you understand this. I mean, we've had this conversation when you were on my show. So what I did was I just said, okay, I just stuffed it down inside of me, pasted a big old smile on my face and pretended that everything was just fine, which obviously it wasn't. And it was just a few months after that when I met Mark, my acupuncturist / now sensei. And, I, of course, didn't mention it to him. But he started treating me, with acupuncture and just, for other various ailments. And he would always keep talking about the art of the ninja, which was his Nimpo Taijutsu. It was his school right next to the clinic. And he kept badgering me. You got to take classes with me. You'd be so good at it. You would love it. As a dancer, you'd be so good. And I'm like, that is never going to happen. I am never going to take a martial arts class. But thanks for asking. Well, about a year after I met him, I was triggered again badly, or PTSD just came spewing out of me and spiraling down. I mean, it was like falling down a rabbit hole. I intuitively knew that the only person I could talk to would be my acupuncturist, Mark. Nobody else had, gave me the time of day. Even my own husband, he says, oh, this is girl stuff. You go talk to Kathleen, your girlfriends. But again, no one would listen. So I went to Mark and I told him what happened. So he started treating me for the symptoms of PTSD. But then his campaign to get me on the mat went into high gear. And I kept saying, nope, not going to happen. I did not understand how hanging out in a smelly dojo with a bunch of sweaty men was going to help me heal and make me feel better and get my power back. And he just kept saying, just try it, just try it. It took another 2 years. and finally, he wore me down. It's like, I have nothing left to fight you with. And I said, okay, I will try a few classes just to prove to you how much I'm going to hate it. And then I'll quit. But I didn't hate it. I fell in love with the art eventually. I fell in love with the training, and I really fell in love with the sense of empowerment that I got from that training.
So because of that, after all your reluctantness, he finally gets you on the mat. And 10 years later, you become his first female black belt student. How did that make you feel?
Wow. I guess that's how it made me feel. when I started training, of course, I wasn't in it for the long run. I never had my eye on getting a black belt. I didn't want a black belt. I didn't want a yellow belt. I didn't even want the white belt, but it came with the uniform, so I had to take it. But once I got involved in the dojo, about 3 months after I started, one of the guys, I was shocked I was still there 3 months later. It's like, what am I doing here? This was going to be just a short-term gig for me. But one of the guys badgered me into testing for my yellow belt. And just to shut him up, I said, okay, I'll test. And then 3 months later, same guy said, I think you need to test for your next level. And I'm like, I think you need to mind your own business. But I tested. Then when it came time for 3 months later, I thought, you know what? I think I can go for the next level. It was nobody else's idea but mine. And at that point, I'm starting to feel like, I think, I was definitely feeling my power coming back. I was feeling my personality come back. I was feeling my snark. But I was feeling something that was really indescribable. There was something so deep inside of me that was starting to bubble up, which I know now is my warrior spirit. And I think I always had that kind of spirit, but it had been crushed over the years just with the things that happened to me in my life. And I'm sure all of your listeners can relate to that, because we've all had experiences that just suck the life out of us or just beat us down, that we feel like we have nothing left to fight with. And I'm here to let your listeners know that you still got it. It's in there. There's an incredible amount of strength, power, and spirit inside of each and every one of us, just waiting to come out.
Here at True Crime and Authors, I read a lot of books. Every author that you've heard me interview and everyone that you will hear me interview, I've either read one of their books or I'm in the process of reading one. So how do I keep up with all of the books that I read? Well, that is where the show's sponsor, Catch Creations 614, comes into play. Catch Creations makes digital handmade planners and journals, and for those who want something on paper, printables as well. She can make anything from My Little Pony to Black Panther, anything that you can creatively think of, Catch Creations 614 can get it done. With excellent customer service and excellent communication, the owner, Kristen, will make sure that your journal comes out right and perfect the first time. And for those who are listeners of this show, you will get a special 10% discount when you use the code TrueCrime10. Catch Creations, best handmade planners, journals, and printables in the business. Check it out now. Well, I would encourage anybody, especially females, to get into martial arts. We don't have enough females in there. There are shows now like Cobra Kai, which I'm dating myself, but it's actually the continuation of the Karate Kid. When I was young, the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank was the first time you ever really seen a female in a serious martial artist role. And now if you watch Cobra Kai, we've got 3 or 4 of them in there that's doing extraordinarily well, doing better than some of the men. And researching that show, they all have had to take martial arts for real to do that. It is very healing, and I'm glad it is something that you found. And I'm proud that you broke the glass ceiling because now that just proves to other women that they also can do that.
And it's really funny because Mark, of course, he eventually became sensei to me, although I choked on the word a few times when I said it the first few times. But he always used to tell me, he says, women are so good at this art. You would be so good. Women have something that men just don't have. And I'm like, what? Besides the parts. And he said, you have your sensuality and you actually can use that. And I thought, okay, this man is really nuts. Until as I was climbing the ranks and started to get higher and higher, the men were really playing off of my feminine energy. And they were teaching me how to use it even more than I already had my feminine wiles. I was pretty good at that. But they helped me just capitalize on that and really use it in the dojo. So once I got to a certain level, they were really cheering me on. They were lifting me up. They were helping me. They were teaching me. And I never really thought I'd get that black belt because it wasn't on the agenda. I was there for the journey. At this point, I was in it. And I was not going to quit. but I still didn't have my eye on that belt until I was the level of brown belt. And I was working out with one of the black belts, who was a friend of mine, of course. And as we were practicing, all of a sudden, he just stopped. And he looked at me and he says, "Oh my gosh, you're the one." And I said, "The one what?" And he said, "You're the one that's going to be Mark's first female black belt." And I said, "No, that's not, no, never going to happen. Not going to happen." And he says, "It is. And we've been waiting for years, wondering who it was going to be." And I still didn't see it. But then it happened. And it made me feel pretty darn good.
You guys are also very unsuspecting, because just to pass you in the street, I would never think that you knew any type of martial arts. I mean, if you look at the women now that's in MMA, they're built, they got big muscles, very nice, petite young lady. And, that's how come a lot of men get beat up on the street.
And I also have that wide-eyed, "Oh no, please don't hurt me. I'm just a helpless, harmless little middle-aged woman."
Next thing you know, you're on the ground eating dirt.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it worked over and over and over again with the guys in the dojo. And I'm like, really? Have you not met me yet? You know that this is my MO?
So now you've conquered that. You've now written Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond. What made you want to write that book?
That first one?
Yes.
Well, I have to blame part of that on my youngest sister. She kept telling me, "You should write a book. You should write a book." And I said, "Well, if you think it's such a good idea, why don't you write a book?" And she says, No, you're a very good writer." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" And she says, "Well, I read your blog posts, blah, blah, blah." So she says, "You need to write a book about our family and, our family history." And I thought, okay. So I started and I thought, this is really silly. If I'm going to put all this energy into writing a book, I really ought to do something that's going to help my career. I decided I would write this book, including all of the techniques that I use to help heal myself and all of the techniques that I use to help my clients. Because when I opened my physical therapy practice, I actually would tell my clients, "I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to heal you. I'm going to give you the tools to heal yourself." And it worked really well. And a lot of the clients that I got either had already failed traditional PT or were like me, that had been declared incurable by the medical profession. And I was their last resort. So it did work out very well. And I thought, if I could put all of this together in a book, then I could reach more than just this Denver community. I can go, all over the country and worldwide, so people could learn some of the tools that I used, and that they might be able to either use those same tools, or at least it would encourage them to look for some alternative ways of healing. So that's why I did it.
So the book, from what I've read, has gotten a lot of good reviews. I'm passing this book along to people like my wife and other people that suffer from pain. Did you expect it to take off the way that it did?
No, I didn't really expect anything. I didn't know what to expect. Because, you put a book out there and, it's like podcasting. You never know. Is anybody going to listen? Is anybody going to read it? So the feedback I got was really great, and it's still doing very well to this day. So I'm very happy about that.
So the one thing I want to point out is that in your book, you do talk about somatic movement. Can you tell us what somatic movement is and why it is important?
The somatic movement is just the mind-body connection that we hear about a lot nowadays, like Pilates, yoga. It's really integrating all of the senses with your movement. So it's not just, I'm going to do these exercises. By the way, just so the audience knows, I am a physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food, because it is. But I love movement. And when you take the focus off of exercise and put it on moving, and how movement can be so therapeutic, it can feel good. And the benefits of just moving and finding things that you really enjoy doing. A lot of people don't want to go to the gym 3 times a week or put on some running shoes and go running in the park. But maybe they want to take a dance class, explore yoga. some of the other modalities that are out there that are healing movement modalities. There's so many. Feldenkrais, I just heard of something called cogno-movement recently. So that's really where the focus is, not on exercise, but on movement. And even if it's just simply putting on some music and dancing in your kitchen as you're cleaning it or as you're cooking, that really adds up to help keep you fit and healthy for the rest of your life.
Is there certain foods that we should stay away from that would help us with vitality as well as pain?
Well, yeah. And everybody we all know what to stay away from, but trying to do it is really difficult. Because we live in a society, everything's so fast paced and we're so busy. It's a lot easier to stop by the drive-thru and get some burgers and fries than it is to cook a meal, right? But I have a book that I read, oh my gosh, probably over 20 years ago, and I still recommend it to people. Picture Perfect Weight Loss. And it's written by a physician who specialized in weight management. And it's a beautiful book. It's well written, but it has the pictures is what really speaks to you and the readers. He'll show you on one page, you can eat this food and it has so many calories and fat in it. Or you can eat this and you go to the next page and it's all this beautiful food, all of a large volume of it for the exact same amount. But that it's all fresh, it's all healthy, very little preparation. So it's all about educating yourself and like eating this, not that. And at first it might seem, oh no, I'm going to have to, deprive myself of things that I really enjoy eating. And that's not really true. That's the bad way. It's not the right way to go about thinking. It's like, well, let's just make a few changes here and there. And then all of a sudden it changes the pathways in your brain, it changes your taste buds, it changes how you're looking at food, and then you make another small change. And then eventually some of the food that really isn't good for us doesn't even appeal to us anymore.
Yeah, I always say everything in moderation. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I have excellent doctors that's worked with me on that, because when I found out I was a diabetic almost 10 years ago, my first thought, oh my God, everything's got to go. I can't eat sugar, I can't do this. And I finally, even though the doctor I had before, I don't think was, some of these doctors are just iron fist. You got to do this, you got to do this, you're not doing this. Through the pandemic, I finally found a doctor that worked with me and said, you don't got to cut all this out. It's moderation. Let me teach you how to do that. And I was big into soda. And now are you looking around, all of the soda companies now is getting more into sugar-free sodas because they're figuring out that there's a bunch of us that ain't supposed to drink it. And he said everything in moderation. Maybe you can drink a cup of sugar-free soda, but not drink a case, right? Mm-hmm. So I do believe that some of these bad foods, like the book that you're mentioning, which I'm gonna have to go check that out now. If you do it the correct way, you can certainly eat these things.
Oh, absolutely.
So now, after all of this that you've been through, what would you tell the audience if they're suffering chronic pain? Would you advise them to swear off medications and read a book like yours, or how would you advise them to go being a physical therapist?
Well, I wouldn't advise getting rid of the medications yet. You don't want to do any abrupt change. I did it and it worked for me, but I wouldn't recommend that. What I would really advise people to do is to do your homework. There are so many wonderful, like I said, healing modalities out there, alternative modalities to try that could really, really help you. The key is moving. You cannot stop moving. It doesn't mean you need to be doing jumping jacks or deep squats, but just even very gentle movement gets the blood flowing, the lymphatic flow going, the interstitial fluid in the body, everything, the mind going. And it actually not only is good for your body, it's good for your mental health and well-being as well. So just start moving. I would research, you can get my book if you like. You can email me and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you think this is okay? I can't really say if it is or isn't. If it feels right to you, then it's right. If it doesn't feel right, then you might want to just chuck it and go on to something else. So keep an open mind about some of the alternative healing methods that we have out there, like acupuncture, Reiki, craniosacral therapy, reflexology, Feldenkrais, cogno movement. There's so much out there to explore. Only try one thing at a time. So don't try everything at once, because then you don't know what's working or what isn't working. And just be patient with yourself and just understand that the body has an incredible capacity to heal itself as long as we give it the correct environment.
So I'm definitely recommending this book, guys. So you'll be able to know how you can get a hold of this book at the end of the show. But I do now want to talk about, now you've published your second book, The Reluctant Ninja, How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen. This has earned you an award too. So now your sister told you to write one book. You didn't want to do that, wrote it, comes a good book. Now you write a second one, getting awards. Tell us a little bit about your second book here.
Okay, well, not only did I win an award, but so I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of the book being released. And last week, it actually hit #1 bestseller on Amazon in 3 categories.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty awesome.
So is it like your memoir, or just telling people how, you got into martial arts and how it helped you?
It's the whole story. It's everything. I take the readers on that roller coaster ride that I went on as I was going through the trauma, the PTSD, just trying to deal with it on my own, then meeting Mark, and then him trying to get me into martial arts. So it goes, that whole story of going through the training and finding my power. But, it was not a trajectory, like a straight trajectory. There were a lot of times that I got the rug pulled out from underneath me again. So it was not smooth sailing the whole time. But there are some incredibly funny stories in the book, really funny stories. There are some heartbreaking stories. There are some stories about nothing but spirit and grit and feminine power and the men that helped me find it. So I have to give them credit, and I do, because I couldn't have done it without the many magnificent men in my life.
On the topic of women empowerment, which is exactly what this is, what would you say to women out there that maybe want to get into martial arts, but they're intimidated by it?
Well, I understand because it is really intimidating. But what I would suggest is that you start researching dojos in your area. Dojos, martial arts schools, whatever, in your area. Make a list and then start calling them. Look at their websites first, do your research, and pick out maybe 3 to 5 that really seem they might work for you or they seem attractive to you. And then physically go to the school, talk to the owner, and definitely watch at least 1 or 2 classes. Talk to some of the students, talk to the instructors, so you can get a feel for what the school is like. If it's like for our school, it's very welcoming, it's very fun, it's very low key. We train really hard, but it doesn't have that, real militant type of style to it. When you're in the dojo, just kind of get a sense of what it's like and if it feels right for you. And if it doesn't, it's like, okay, check that one off the list and then keep on going until you find one that you think is going to be a good fit. If you're intimidated about being in a room full of nothing but men, I can understand that. See if they have women-only classes. That might be the way to go. Or check and see if they offer self-defense classes for women only. And that would be a nice way of just like dipping your toe into the water without really going full body cannonball in.
In today's climate, do you think that it is more important than ever at this point that women do take some type of self-defense course for themselves?
Oh, absolutely. Not only women, I'm thinking, men as well, because I think men are a little lost right now. Like, where do they fit into society? There's way too much man bashing out there, and it really makes me crazy. I can't stand it. So I just think not only for self-protection, it's more for self-confidence. It's more for grounding. It's more for that feeling of inner peace. When you know, especially as a woman my age and my size, that I can handle myself. And my first option, of course, is to run away, evade, not be in the way of an attack. But when I know I can take down somebody twice my size and half my age, I feel pretty good about myself. But of course, like you said earlier, the first reaction is not to fight. It's to protect yourself and keep yourself safe. And you can get so much of that through martial arts. And not only that self-protection and that confidence, it actually helps you work through other problems you might be having in your business, in your relationships, finances, health. That training I fall back on all the time. It's like, wait a minute, instead of just like barreling through it, let me see if I could use the energy of what's coming at me and turn it to my advantage.
So now we pretty much gave everybody the overview. I want you guys to go out and definitely check out both her books. Try to get both of them here at the end of the show. But now, where is Cheryl Ilov today? You look great. I'm assuming that you're still very pain-free. Are you still training in martial arts? What is your life like now?
Yes, I am still training. I am getting ready to test for my 3rd degree level black belt. That should be in another 2 or 3 months, depending. The training's going pretty well, but you never know. I am pole dancing at least 2 or sometimes 3 times a week. At a local pole studio. So I started that when I was 58. It was kind of like on a dare, just, oh, hey, take this class and see what happens. And I fell in love with it. Not because of the traditional, way people think of pole and pole dancing. It is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. It is so hard. Again, it's another thing that is very empowering. When you can lift your entire body weight and invert it on a metal pole without, breaking your neck, that's pretty encouraging. That makes you feel pretty strong. Or even just climbing up a metal pole. So I do that. I do teach a weekly class at the studio, but I don't teach pole. I teach somatic movement because it's very easy to get injured when you're doing something that extreme. I'm working on my next book, my next few books. Got a great podcast where I have fabulous guests like David.
Thank you.
And just kind of enjoying these golden years, I guess.
So that was a perfect segue because that's exactly where I was going here at the closing. I do want to talk to you about the Femininja Project. What is the podcast all about? Why did you decide, or what made you decide to do this fabulous podcast?
Well, it is loosely based on my experience as a martial artist, which is where we got the name, the Femininja. It's about overcoming obstacles, personal empowerment, restoring human dignity, finding your voice, standing your ground, and alternative health and healing. So it kind of encompasses everything that I'm very passionate about and really believe in. And like I said, I have fantastic guests on the show. I've just learned so much from them, and it's just met so many fantastic people like yourself. I never really decided to start a podcast, okay? I did the same thing like the martial arts. I was the reluctant author and the reluctant podcaster. There's a woman in Denver who has a local talk show. And I would listen to her every now and again, and I really liked her. She was funny. She was sarcastic. She had a voice that was kind of like glass in a blender, but it worked for her. And one day she announced that she was starting this new platform, this new business. It was going to be nothing but female podcasters, and, sign up for the newsletter and you'll get more details. And I thought, ooh, I'm going to sign up for this newsletter because I love this woman. So I did, and I got an automated email response. Hey, we're looking for the next best female podcaster. Why don't you enter our contest? And I thought, I don't know what a podcast is. I don't know why I would ever want one. People have told me I should look into it. If I enter this contest, maybe I'll learn something about podcasting a few years down the road if I ever want to do it. So I thought, okay. And then I might meet this woman too, because I thought she was great. So I entered the contest, and 6 miserable weeks later, with incredible stress that I had to learn all of this technology with very little coaching. They didn't give us any coaching. It's like, just download this stuff, watch some YouTube videos. Of course, I didn't win the contest, but I was invited to join her platform anyway, because I went all the way through it. So I was on her platform for about 9 months, and it was like, this is stupid. I can just do this on my own. So that's when I said, hey, thanks. It was great, but I'm going out on my own. So that's what I did. And now I have recorded over 230 episodes.
It gets in the blood, doesn't it? I know
it sure does.
On this show, I think I'm right when you come out, somewhere between the 31 and 35 episode. I did have another podcast, which is still active. It's just on hiatus right now, called David McClam. We've done over 180 episodes there. And once you get into it and you learn this, because I think, like I said to you on your show, I came from the YouTube era. And YouTube is significantly easier to do than podcasting because it's, okay, you just got to learn how to splice some stuff out and edit it, but YouTube takes care of everything else. On our end, we're editing and we're producing and we're getting guests, and it's just one thing after the next. But once you get into it and you get a good show, you feel real good about it. Now, your motto over there is look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. Break that down for us, what that means for everybody that's listening.
Okay, well, it was one of those moments of brilliance at 3:00 in the morning that I just woke up sweating and going, what am I going to do with my time? And that logo or that tagline came into my head because sometimes people think if you're a strong woman that you have to be, like really tough, or you have to be, just rigid, or you have to not embrace your femininity, or, get rid of the makeup or get rid of the heels. And that's not true. It's possible to look like a woman, but you don't want to necessarily act like a buffoon or act like, maybe too, cussing all the time and everything. Trust me, I think cussing is fine, but you can act like a lady, which is a lot more attractive and appealing. And the move like a ninja, it really drives me crazy when I see the way some women, and especially young girls, it makes me nuts, how they move and how they walk and how they stand. Because that in itself makes them vulnerable. Because predators are looking for easy targets. And when they see somebody who's really slumped over, who's looking down, who's looking at their phone, not paying attention to the environment, it's like that looks like somebody who can't handle themselves. But when you enter the scene and you walk with that ninja energy, people sense it, people feel it, especially people who want to do you harm. So that's where the move like a ninja comes in. Thinking like a warrior, it's having that warrior mindset. And the spirit of a warrior, and I always like to tell, when I'm on a podcast, that in case people are thinking about a warrior is about aggression, conflict, fighting, warfare. No, that's the furthest thing from the truth. The warrior spirit has a very loving and compassionate heart. We love peace and harmony. We love mankind, within reason. All we ever want to do is to take care of ourselves, our families, our community, our environment. We don't want to fight. We want to walk away from a fight. We want to be able to recognize something is coming, and so we can take care of ourselves and protect ourselves, or even de-escalate a situation. But fighting is absolutely the last thing that we want to do. We have very strong boundaries, and if people cross them, it's like, okay, please don't do that again, please. Oh, the second time, now, really, I told you, no, we're not doing this. Don't go there. The third time, it's like, but bum. I told you not to do that, or I asked politely, but you wouldn't listen.
And I can see that too, because I guess I must have this look about me too, especially in a public place. One day a woman said hi to me, and I guess I shocked her because I said hi and I smiled back. And she said, can I tell you something? She goes, I didn't expect you to say hi back to me because you're like you want to kill someone. And I'm like, oh, no. I said, I guess this is the look I have because I'm focused. And I guess my look is saying, don't mess with me, move my way. If you're even thinking about anything, this is not going to be good for you. But I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I said, this is just my look. I guess I'm in public. I'm a very friendly person. So I totally get that, move and walk like a ninja, because I'm like that all the time. My wife even said, you'd have like that if I said anything to you, just going to kill me. I'm like, that's not the meaning of it, but
No.
You have a lot of fabulous episodes. I've listened to a whole bunch of them. They're all empowering, uplifting. You're doing some great things with that show over there. In case anybody's looking to maybe want to be a guest, tell us what kind of guests are you looking for over on the Feminine Ninja Project?
Okay, I'm looking for people who have overcome something either, very difficult or tragic, and maybe came through it, how they came through it. I'm looking for guests who maybe have had experiences of healing from either injuries or chronic illness. I'm looking for people who just have great stories about personal empowerment.
I was a guest on the show. My episodes come out later on this month. You guys be sure to check that out. I talk about my experiences with domestic abuse on both ends, from a parent and from a domestic partner. I started doing this year because my goal is to empower and help other men come out with that. Those of us that are Hispanic and those of us that are African American, we have this machismo. Nobody talks about it. And as a man, we suffer in pain with that because we never talk about it or let it out. So I'm hoping by being on shows like yourselves, as well as a couple other shows that I've done, I was on another show and they wrote me and said that my episode is one of the highest downloaded episodes that they have. So I'm just helping to spread the word like you are.
And, it was a fabulous conversation and a fabulous episode. And I really think I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing, because I know how much I suffered and struggled, and I cannot imagine what it's like for a man. And of course, nobody's going to listen to you. I will, but no one else will.
Well, you are you're a sweet person. I wouldn't mess with you. On your latest book cover, you're standing there in a pose with your ninja sword, and I'm looking at you going, yeah, I don't know if I would even attempt that, because you look like we know what you're doing. So I do thank you for coming on the show today. In closing, Cheryl, is there anything you would like to say to your fans and readers out there?
Oh, no, I want to thank you, David, for having me on the show. This has been great. I really appreciate it. And for the listeners there, my readers, listeners, followers, or just somebody who's just meeting me for the first time on this show, just remember that there is an incredible amount of personal strength, inner strength, warrior spirit, and the ability and capability for you to heal and recover from anything, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, it doesn't matter. You can heal. Your body wants to heal. It wants to be in homeostasis. If you have any questions, if you just want somebody to listen to you, hold your hand, send me an email. I'm always there to listen and to encourage you.
Well, again, Cheryl, thank you for coming on the show. It has been an enlightening time with you. Every time I see you, I'm happy because you're just full of smiles. Anytime you want to come back on the show, you have an open standing invitation to do so.
Oh, thank you, David. I appreciate that. You might live to regret that invitation.
All right, everybody, that was the fabulous Cheryl Ilov. Please go and check out her podcast, The Feminine Ninja Project. I will leave that link in the show description. Also, you can get her books, Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond, and The Reluctant Ninja, How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen, both on Amazon and on Kindle Unlimited. If you are on Kindle Unlimited and you check out her books, which you have absolutely no excuse to not read them, please make sure that you are flipping the pages. She does not make any money unless you are turning pages. Everything you need to know about her email address, as well as everything else, will be in the show description, as well as on my website. It will be linked to her episode. So please go and give Cheryl some love. All right, guys, I thank you for joining me today. I know you have many options in true crime podcasts. I'm glad that I am one of them. Be safe and always remember, always stay humble. An act of kindness, it can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And this is the podcast where two passions becomes one.
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Authors. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. On Facebook at True Crime and Authors. On Twitter at Authors True. On YouTube and TikTok at True Crime and Authors. And email at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Dazzling_Ray from Fiverr. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild from Fiverr. And I'm the voice guy, your imaging guy from Fiverr. See you next time on True Crime and Authors.